Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome. So, before I came on here, I was thinking that maybe I need a few words at the beginnings of my video to frame the video or to kind of introduce myself. But then I realized I don't really have anything to say, which sounds weird. I'll explain in a second what I mean by that. But yeah, my intuition usually is to just like jump right into the message, and I think it worked pretty well. I think that's an absolutely valid way to just like head in straightforward. The reason why I'm talking about that is because it fits into today's message. And if you've seen a few of my videos, you already know that I'm always observing the energy that is happening, like what's happening right before I start recording. This usually tells me something about what's going on. It's usually part of the message already, and I can read things out from there. So me thinking about, should I do something different? Should I talk about myself? Should I introduce myself? And while I was debating that with myself in my head, there was a part of me that said, like, no, I'd rather have people experience me than me telling them what to expect or who I am. And I'm actually having trouble really like breaking it down into a few neat sentences in an elevator pitch, if you like, because I know that I work in many different ways. My readings, they are unpredictable. There could be so many different things happening with them. I mean, the last video I posted, I did an omen reading with gummy bears. And like those kind of things, they just pop up randomly. And I'm sometimes diving into philosophy or history or theology, and sometimes I'm more on the psychological side. And to compress all of that, and there's so much more, and to compress all of that in a few sentences feels actually pretty impossible for me. So the whole message today is actually evolving around self-expression, but also a question about like, who am I and what image of myself am I projecting out into the world, and how is the world perceiving me? And it has a lot to do with our voice. Self-expression has always to do with the voice. And when I speak about the voice, it's not always simply like speaking, our speaking voice. It's also when you paint. It's also when you have an expression on your face. It's when you dance. It's when you maybe just sit there and do nothing at all. Those are all parts of your voice, not just in a physical sense, the voice in a physical sense, but the voice as your unique way of expressing yourself. And self-expression is you showing the world who you are and communicating, interacting with the world. The thing is that we as people born and raised in certain societies with specific belief systems and certain preferences in those cultures and societies that we live in, if we don't fit the preference of the culture that we live in, we start to push our true voice down because we feel like we are not valid. The way I express myself, or sometimes not express myself, which is an expression too, and I'll get to that in a minute, in whatever way I am expressing my truth, or like to express my truth, and this is not coherent with what's valued and treasured in the culture and society that I'm born and raised in or living in, then it's a struggle. It's always a struggle. And we usually feel like we have to change. We have to suppress our true voice. We have to suppress our true self-expression, who we really are. And we try to fit ourselves into those very limiting, neat little boxes of what is perceived as a valid form of self-expression. I will get into that more during the message. I want to talk about something that I received, I don't know, it was a few days ago, last week somewhere. A question popped into my head, and it was, am I allowed to speak? Am I supposed to speak? And is it safe to speak? And there's so much in there. Because so many times we are forced to stay quiet when we actually have a lot to say, and other times we are forced to speak when we don't have anything to say at all. And this is a way of not living our true self-expression. And the interesting thing is that I wrote down this question somewhere last week. And just yesterday, I had a conversation with a friend about an experience of her in her workplace that she often feels, or not just in her workplace, but it's a theme that like shows up in many different ways in her life. But we talked about work, where she often is criticized for her being too quiet in meetings, like not speaking up, not there's always this question like, well, don't you have anything to say? And I feel like there's even like this feeling of questioning your sovereignty, for one. Like, can you be a quiet person and still have an opinion, even if you don't voice it, maybe? And this is something we are, at least in the Western culture, there is a lot of value placed on always speaking up, always talking. There's so much chatter. And if you don't talk, if you are someone who is rather quiet, this is for one often interpreted as being shy, which are two completely different things. You don't have necessarily be timid or shy, only if you are a quiet person. But yeah, there is this thing about like we are forced to speak up, even if we maybe don't have anything valuable to say right now in this moment, but we feel like we have to because otherwise we are perceived as not knowledgeable, not competent, not confident. There are all sorts of beliefs put on us if we stay quiet. And I'm starting, it's interesting because I actually have a lot to say about all of those things. And I'm starting to feel a little bit restrained. It's hard finding the right words, and it feels like I cannot really communicate what I actually want to say. And I feel like this is part of the effect that this, okay, we are forced to speak when we don't have anything to say yet, maybe, or maybe we just don't want to say anything, which is perfectly valid. Like, we don't always have to put out our opinions out there. I mean, anybody who has ever looked into a YouTube comment section has probably had the thought like, well, if like at least 50% of the people there would just have not said anything, the world would not have missed it. So I would say it's actually a trade, a very good trade, a valid one, to know when to just shut the fuck up and not say anything. You don't always have to say anything. So now I lost my train of thought. Okay, it's not coming back. Maybe it's coming back at some point. Probably will, if it's important. So yeah, I'm kind of flip-flopping back and forth between those two extremes of, oh, I have so much to say and I want to say it, and then I'm interrupting my flow because I want to press it into some kind of structure. Yeah, that's the thing. That's like the expression of our true voice, of who we really are. We are disturbing that natural flow by trying to put it into those neat little boxes, those frameworks, those it's like a manual. Like, I mean, how many trainings are out there where you are trained in how to hold a speech, how to come across as confident, and how to... There's always this thing about not wasting anybody's time. Everything has to be like spot on and pressed into like 5 minutes, and you really have to nail it in that time. It's this whole... I used to work in marketing, so I'm very used to this whole thing of, or like very familiar with this. You have to compress it. You have to nail it. You are not allowed to stray from like the core message for just like 1 millisecond, or you will lose the attention of your viewers. And I mean, if you look at my videos, they are long. There is a lot of space that I'm taking up, and it's demanding attention. The people who watch my videos, they have to have a pretty wide attention span, not just because it's long, but also because my mind is moving in spirals. So there's always a red thread, and I'm always coming back to it, but I'm going down like a million rabbit holes in between. This is just how my channeling works. But this is how my mind works in general. And like my friends know that when I'm telling a story, it's like we are crossing so many mountains and forests and like take a little detour to that castle, and then we are watching the deers over there. So it's like always, it's a little adventure. We don't go on adventures anymore in our stories, in our conversations, in our like how we let ourselves express ourselves. Everything has to be, like I said, on point, contained in a certain time frame or a certain structure on how you have to structure your speeches, how you have to present in front of clients or a YouTube audience or whoever. I don't care. Like we are so restricted in so many ways, and there are so many guidelines and manuals out there how to speak, how to deliver content, how to write a blog post, how to create a YouTube video. And it's putting on like all of those restrictions on our voices. And we feel like I am not allowed to speak just the way I am. I am not allowed to express my true self. And this is the first part of the sentence I wrote down. Am I allowed to speak? And you could say like, yeah, of course, am I allowed to speak my truth? Am I allowed to speak at all? There are many people in this world right now who are afraid to speak about what their belief is. The women of this world have been not allowed to speak for millennia. And like people in general have like over centuries and millennia been forced to they were not allowed to speak their truth because they had to follow a certain religion or political belief or societal standards or whatever, you name it. And now we are putting on those, like the way of like how we express ourselves, even in like the standard and the format. Like I said, like when you're creating a YouTube video or when you're holding a presentation for a client or when you're writing a book or a blog post, it doesn't matter. Like everything has its format and you are expected to work within that framework. A little story out of my own life. I once held a presentation. Like it was a friend of mine who, like, for her birthday, she had like a gathering and she wanted to have something like a little presentation or anything, like a little. Yeah. So she asked me if I could do something because she valued my insights. And so I did that. And I spoke very freely and like it was structured. I had a structure in there, but it was not perfectly performed. And like not every word was like I didn't really practice. I just trusted that I had a framework, I had an idea, I had a red flag, and I would just like go along with it. And I mean, it was a birthday party. So the funny thing was the reactions were pretty extreme. There were a few people who were so excited, and they came to me afterwards and they were like, oh my God, it's like, that was so insightful and magical. And I just love the way you present and like how you talk, and it's so inspiring. And then there was this one guy who came over to me and he started to lecture me on how to properly hold a speech. And it was clear, like he was somebody who, I think he said he trains people in his company, and like he has like all this knowledge and experience and speaking and all that stuff. And I just told him then, I was like, I know what you're talking about. I know the rules. It's not that I cannot do that or that I don't know it. I just don't want to. And he looked at me with such an, like, he was just baffled. He didn't know what to do with that. Because I simply told him that I knew about all the rules, but I just didn't care. And that I actually liked the way I talk, and I like the kind of content, or like in this case, the presentation that I made. And I told him that like most like of the podcasts and videos, like the people I follow, most of them have a similar way of presenting content. It's just different, but it's how my brain works. And he really didn't know what to make of that. And yeah, he tried to lecture me even further. And yeah, I don't want to go more into that. It made me really angry at that time. It was a few years ago. And I was still working through many... I'm still working through many topics regarding my voice. But yeah, that was one of those beautiful moments of mansplaining, which is something, without wanting to go like too much into like those polarizing opposites of man versus women. Like, that's not what I'm meaning. It's just, there's this energy of, and there are also women who do that. There's this very linear thinking mind that likes to suppress the more chaotic, spiralic way of moving and being and living. And you could say it's the masculine force, which is more like the linear one, and it's this feminine force that is more the spiralic one. Those are just names for two different forces, and both of them are valid and important, equally important. The thing is that many of us who live more in this spiralic nature, where it's more of who we are, it's more of our nature. You could say it's the feminine nature. Like I said, it's simply a label. Don't get hung up on that, please. This nature is not valued as much in this culture and this age that we are living in than the very linear mind, the more masculine side. And it's actually, you could say it's an act of rebellion to not follow those rules of the linear way of moving through life in general. And it doesn't matter what you do. It's like how you live your life, how you plan or not plan your life, how you move through your day or how you move through a speech. And I don't say that there is no value in structure and frameworks and all of that. They are very valid. And there's always a time and place for everything. And sometimes I do very much enjoy a neatly framed 5 to 10 minute TED Talk. And I find it very inspiring, and I'm also in awe, I have to say, of people who are able to condense information in such a poignant and neat, structured, to the point way. And I know that I can do that too, because like I said, I worked in marketing. I do have those skills, but it's just not my preferred way of being and expression. I mean, when I write an article, that's a different story. But in those more spoken realms, I like my voice to just like freely express itself the way it comes out. Like now, I'm kind of circling around the same topic, but I'm just jumping around. It seems like I'm jumping around, but usually when I watch it afterwards, I realize, no, there's actually a red thread in there. There actually is. And I'm just trusting this guiding force that's inside of me, that's coming from a place that is, for me, it's located somewhere in the center of my body. It's moving from the center. And I just let this force take over. And I just let it flow through me and express itself through my voice. And I just trust that whatever comes out is the thing that wants to be spoken, that wants to be expressed, and that matches a need out there. There's somebody out there who needs what I have to say. And to be quite honest, I've made the experience, especially in readings, when I'm doing readings, like the pieces of information that came from some part inside of me where I didn't really know where it came from. And I felt like I'm going down this rabbit hole. And this is like, why am I even talking about that? Should I just leave it out? Should I cut it out afterwards? Those were the pieces of information that were especially valid for another person. I couldn't even know that. But there's something at work here. There's some force in this universe. There's a higher intelligence. And if we just trust that, if we trust this higher intelligence that wants to be expressed through us, then we might create things that have an effect that we don't even are aware of. We cannot fathom it. We cannot comprehend with our minds. Maybe sometimes in hindsight, because somebody mirrors back to us like, oh, that piece of information, that hit the spot. And like I said, it happened to me so many times where I was like, wow, and I almost didn't say that one thing, or I almost cut it out. That's the reason why I don't edit my videos anymore. I don't. And yeah, we need a structure, and yeah, we need some kind of containment, or otherwise it's just pure chaos. But like for me, for example, I do have like the container is an approximate time frame. Like I'm not making 2-hour videos, although I probably could. Sometimes they're getting longer, and then I feel like, okay, that's like it's supposed to be. Usually they are around 40 minutes, and I don't plan on that. It just happens. So that's a container. Then I have the red thread of like the general topic that I want to talk about. Like this quote that I had, like this question. And I have a vague idea about what the message is in there. And then I just let it flow. I just let something take over. And like I said, usually those are the messages that serve the most. And I'm not saying that the way I'm doing things, because I know that does not work in a corporate environment. I'm absolutely aware of that. And not everybody is as spiralic as I am. Maybe you are way more structured by nature, by just like who you are. Maybe you have a natural ability to just bring order into chaos and to structure things. Like, I so admire people who can just like speak structure on the fly. Like, they just start counting bullet points and never get lost where they are. And then they have just like this perfect framework that they are working with without having to think it through or write it down beforehand. And I very much admire that. Maybe you are one of those persons. But okay, now they are bringing me back, like this higher intelligence is bringing me back to this part about allowing ourselves to speak or not to speak, to be quiet when we don't have anything to say. Because, like I said before, we are in this extroverted society. Like, many societies are like that. Where we are expected to speak, although we don't have anything to say at that moment, maybe. And this is bringing me back to the conversation I had with my friend. By the way, hello, love, if you're watching. So we were talking about how, like, she said something about, like, she doesn't really, in the moment, she often doesn't really have how do you say, like, gathered her thoughts. She was just like taking in. And usually, like, when she had some time afterwards to reflect on things, then she has thoughts and she's like, okay, we can talk about that. I'm happy to talk about it, but I need some time to gather my thoughts and to just like make sense of everything. And I deeply understand that, because I'm the same way. I'm extreme in that way. This is, by the way, something, if you watch my videos, it sometimes, and I'm planning to do that more often from now on. Like, it's like, look into the descriptions, because sometimes afterwards I get a few more thoughts or insights and I'm just writing them down there. So it might be worth taking a look. So yeah, this acknowledging that this is also part of like your self-expression. Maybe you are a person who likes to observe. That's part of your unique self-expression. That is fine. That is very valid. If the world only contained people that are talking all the time, I mean, there is enough chatter already. And I think we don't need to talk about the fact that our feeds are overflowing with mindless chatter. Like, social media is in so many ways just flooded with empty content. And what they're calling AI slop, it's not making it better. It's just taking it to another extreme. I am actually observing a trend that people are more gravitating towards raw content, because everything is so overly manufactured and artificial, and people are craving real humanness. So that is something, oh, okay, so this is something that might be I'm sorry, my words are escaping me. This is happening a lot in this video, that I just cannot think of the English words I want to say. And now I completely lost my train of thought. It's gone again. So what I was saying, oh yeah, like this tendency to go back to like more human content. This could be encouraging for like you who maybe struggle with all the expectations that you feel are put on you and how you should perform. The more artificial our world becomes, and to be honest, if everybody is like trained to speak in a certain way, if speeches are just like following this set framework, you don't need AI to make everything the same, but AI is just like bringing it to another level. And if you've ever worked in an environment where, like with marketing or in startups or all of those environments, like every website looks the same. Every marketing channel that I have sounds and looks the same. Every presentation, every project they're working on, like they have those standardized frameworks that I just use and slap on every client that I have and just like fill in the information. And it's like this, and you're not allowed to stray from that, because there are like the corporate guidelines, and there's the branding, and there's like nothing is allowed to escape this box, this framework. And now I lost my train of thought again. That's interesting that this is happening over and over, paired with this grasping for words, looking for words. I feel like there's something in there. Okay, so they're saying again, let this be encouragement for you that you are allowed to be imperfect. Ah, okay. You're allowed to be imperfect. And actually have faith in the fact that people are gravitating more and more towards the imperfection of humans, because they can tell that you're human because you are imperfect. And it allows them to be more imperfect too. It allows them to sometimes just I don't even want to say fail, because it's like, what do we perceive as a failure? It's when we have expectations how something has to look. And sometimes it's just more about the journey. Like, I'm grateful you went on a journey with me today. So thanks for holding space. Thanks for walking with me. Thanks for trusting me and listening to my voice, to my unique way of self-expressing, to sharing what I believe in, and to be imperfect, to struggle with words sometimes, to move in spirals, to not be linear in my process, to demand your attention in time and in like your cognitive capacities to follow me, because I know it's not always easy to go with that. So I'm grateful, very grateful for that. But I hope that you also take away something from that in a sense of, well, this person, she's sitting there and she's talking into the camera and making things public on YouTube. And so how is that different from me, like as you? I would love for, like, if this would maybe inspire somebody to just believe in it's okay who I am. It's okay for me to not be perfect. It's okay to speak or not speak just how I feel, how this higher intelligence inside of me that everybody has, when this higher intelligence is telling me to speak or not to speak, then I give myself and this higher intelligence the honor of listening to that and going with it. And to be honest, when I look into the world, like I said, when I look at my YouTube feed, for example, I really, really wished for so many more people to just do that, to just like go with what their higher inner intelligence is telling them to do, to say, or not to say. In many, many cases, not to say. It would be such a beautiful, creative, colorful, inspiring place. But to be honest, like, I mean, there are those creators, and don't get me wrong, there are gorgeous creators out there who know exactly how to do that. But there are also, like I said, so many channels out there that are just going for quantity, not for quality. They don't speak or they don't create videos because they have something to say. They create videos because the SEO title is searched for in high quantities, because they like have an AI that's telling them that this is a good idea, or they have some YouTube gurus who are telling them that this is stuff that the algorithm likes. There's this thing about, okay, if you made a video that went viral and that, you know, that works, then just like create the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't matter if it's like just at some point empty, because you said everything there is to say about that. But no, you're milking the cow over and over and over again. Because people are so afraid that they cannot reproduce this success they had, because for them it's about the success and not about the truth in there, not about really having the intention to add meaning to this world. They're speaking for the speaking's sake. They're speaking because they want to make money with it, because they want to hit a certain target. They want to feel valued and validated in their success. And there's nothing wrong with making money with what you have to express, or like with with your content. There's nothing wrong with that. Not at all. But if this is like the motivational factor behind things, things go south. So yeah, I feel like I will write down more things in the description, because I feel like there is a lot more that I would like to add and to actually structure. So yeah, I will see, but it's probably worth it to check out the description. Like I said, I'm incredibly grateful that you allow me to speak my truth here, to express who I am, just the way I am, and just how those forces that are in us and around us all the time, just the way they want to move through me. And I am incredibly grateful for that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for holding space and listening. And I would love to hear your voice. If you have something to say, I would love to hear from you. If you don't have something to say, that's beautiful as well. And yeah, if you would like to give my video a thumbs up if you liked it, if you found it helpful, that would help and serve a lot. Thank you. And yeah, I would love to see you in my next video. And until then, I wish you all the best and take care. Bye.